soon as I get the recording on. So let's kneel for prayer. Dear Father in heaven, we are thankful for the time that we have to study here this morning or evening, wherever we are. And whenever we're watching this, we ask, Lord, for your Holy Spirit to be our teacher. As we near one of the dates that we have picked on our lines, an important date, we know, Lord, that we need to have faith and to trust in you. And in spite of whatever happens, we know, Lord, that you are leading and guiding. And we ask, Lord, for any light that can help us understand these things better to be shared here by Daniel. We ask for your hand to be upon him, that your Holy Spirit can speak through him, and help us to understand the significance of these things. We know, Lord, that there's much that we have to learn and much that we have to unlearn. So help us to have open hearts and minds, but also, Lord, that your Holy Spirit can teach us. We pray for each person who's watching this, who's participating, the struggles that they have in their personal lives. Help them to have a faith that can lay hold upon your promises and that can look beyond this world to the things that you have prepared for us. Thank you for hearing our prayer. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So, I ask people to, keep their mics off unless they have to make a comment. And, I'm going to keep mine off as well. So we'll just let Daniel will unmute his and he'll take over the study at this time.
Okay, hello. My name is Dan Vanderhorst in Michigan. And the whole reason I'm here, I guess, today is because after watching Jeff present Palmoni's test and Theodore presenting the 273 part 1 and 2, I came across some observations that seemed very interesting. And so that's what I'm going to show you today. But first I'm going to start with one thing that I found a few weeks or so after this that seems like a good starting point, especially because, it's interesting that we're starting at 11 o'clock your time and it's 1 p.m. my time. So right now it's 1 p.m. here and 11 a.m. where you're at. So if we look at, the 777 line from 11:9, can you see these numbers up here? Are they too small?
I can see them. I have a fairly small screen, but they're, they could be probably a little bit bigger.
Okay, I'll try to make them bigger as we go along here. But we know that from 9/7/19 is 63 days to 11/9/19, and from 11/9/19 to 1/11/20 is 63 days. And then from 1/11/20 to 3/27/20, no, 21, it's 63 weeks, right? And then from 3/27/21 to 12/25, it's 273 days, right? So I was messing with some numbers, and if you take 273, sorry, and multiply that by 5, which is 1.618, you come up with 441.714. And I was trying to figure out what that was until I noticed that 63 weeks equals 441 days. And so I thought, wow, well, that's pretty neat how that is. But what about the 714? So I kept flipping that around and noticed that if you subtract 441 from 714, you get 273. So those numbers are all involved here. So my thought process as I was looking at this was that 441.441 plus 273. So you can see that represents 63 for the 63 weeks. But then in my head, I'm thinking, okay, 63, 63, and a 273. So 63 twice and 273. But of course, the 441 represents the 63 weeks. And there I thought, wow, I found something pretty neat. But then I was still troubled about the 714. Now, does anyone know what that 714 is? Because, I mean, this is an interesting way to see the numbers, but 714 is the amount of days from 111 to 225, 1225. So in my mind, that seeing the number phi, which is, Fibonacci sequence, the ratio 1 to 1.618, it's like in God's natural creation that he uses that number to solidify this line of prophecy for us. Anyone have any comment on that?
I have a comment, definitely. It's very interesting. These relationships, what you talk about is these relationships that are nature, but also we can see that we have these things that, weeks and days, of course, are part of nature in a sense. I mean, God created the week. But, we see it in the relationships between all these numbering systems that we have, the way that we keep track of time. And so these things are part of nature, but they're also part of man. There's divinity and humanity combined in this, is the way that I see it.
Right. But it was very surprising when you come across stuff like this. I can just imagine yourself as well as when you're studying out like the Mayan calendar and everything. When you see how it's got such an order to it, the lights go on. It's like when I was first converted and became a Christian, when I realized that God designed and made everything in the world. It was, of course there's a God in heaven, and I had to follow him. And that's when I started to study and everything back on November 11th, 1996. But on to the next part. So that I just said to, just add another witness to the December 25th, 2021 line. And then now in our notes there, I just made some shorthand notes here. I had been going back and through all of the videos that I could, and watching them from the School of the Prophets. And I had just finished Palmoni's test, part 1 and 2, from Jeff, and then started to watch your videos from 273, part 1 and 2. And now as you were writing this out on the lines, 10, 11, 4, 9, 21, and we have 7, 18. You had a mark here, but then you marked the center at 7:10.
Yeah, so just to explain to people, so not everybody is as familiar with this. but part of the study that I did Friday night, I addressed these 2 dates and some of the morning meetings last week. So if people want to review them, but these are 2 different dates. The October 11th, 2019 is a date that I found on October 10th. And October 10th, I had already predicted. So on October 10th, I then came to this date, October 11th, and I used the 391 years, and I used another way of using the 0.5 as a symbol. So I took 5/12 of that whole period and added a tenth of that together to come to that date. And then I did the same thing with 144,000 days. And I took that 5/12 and then 1/10 of 5/12 and added it together, and I got the April 9th, 2021 date. And the center of those 2 dates is that July 10th. Now, the other date I probably would have had over on the side would have been like, I'm not sure which date when you said I was writing it out. Probably July 31st or something like that.
Yeah. But it wasn't there at this point in the video. You had erased it. So you just walked through. As I saw you doing this, remember I had just been watching Jeff for 3 hours present on Palmoni, that certain saint which spake. And when you put that right there, that it was 8 days from here, and I remembered in my head that, that this mark here had been 13 days from 7/31. And Jeff even stopped you and said, well, hold on, what was that one that you erased? If you ever look back in the video. And I was just waiting for him to say this right here, because I figured he would have seen it, the 8, and then you told him it was 13 days later, so it was 8/13. And to me at the time, because I think at this time, on the chats and even on the presentations in the morning, Jeff and everyone was talking about, what if the disappointment, the bitterness that could happen to us on 7/18, like it happened for the Millerites. And so everyone was kind of talking about this. So it was really fresh in my mind that about 8/13 in the certain saint. So it was like God putting his fingerprint or pointing directly at this number right here, this date, August 13th. So 8/13.
And of course, this is a Fibonacci sequence, part of the Fibonacci sequence, which you just referenced in your calculation there with the 441 and the 7.714.
Right. And if, most of us that are sitting here watching this know about that, but if anyone doesn't have a clue about it that's watching this video later, look it up, because it's amazing. It's in everything. But so here I was seeing this relationship here, and going over it and over it in my head. I was just so taken by it. And at that same time, years ago, and probably all of us here reading through the writings of Ellen White have always come through, and how she says, lift up your voice like a trumpet, and give the trumpet a certain sound. And when we read in Daniel 8:13 about that certain saint and the certain sound, when we're blowing the trumpet here at 7:18, it seems to me almost, that certain saint, we're giving the trumpet that certain sound when we're showing these lines, because Palmoni is in all of these lines, and that's what this message really is built upon, is the line upon line that we get from Palmoni. So from here, I took the 273 and started to look at different measurements from it. So I think the first thing I did, the best way here is I went from 11/9 273 days, and you arrive at 8/8/20. And then if you, then if you keep going from 8/8, 273 more days, you come to 5/8/21 with 231 days left over. And
Yeah, so 231 to December 25th, right? Does that,
Yep.
because it's hard to see the number there, but it's December,
yes,
December
Yep,
25th, 2021. Maybe make that bigger just on above there.
sure.
Yeah, and the December 25th date, I just cannot see it. Like,
Yeah.
it needs to be a bit bigger.
That back one.
Yeah. So just, yeah, I know you're always writing the numbers. I actually prefer, but anyway, shouldn't tell you what to do. Put the the month as letters, but I guess,
Oh, yeah.
but that's better to read there.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
you can see that. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense too. So I had this, and then I seen the relationship to here, and what we have here is 8 days between 7/31 and 8/8. So I just kept measuring, like what in Ezekiel, the man in linen, takes Ezekiel up and sees the the temple, the city, and tells him to go measure everything. Have you ever, maybe someone here knows better than I, but have you ever read through there and tried to figure out what God is trying to tell us through measuring all of the entrances and exits and everything on that city? But I think in one aspect, it's to get us to measure everything to do with the building of his church now. And that's what these lines are, right? The building up of God's church, the 144,000. But so then now I went back from 1225 and go backward 273. And we come to, that's an easy one. 327/21 is 273. And then from 327 it's 6/27/20 when you go 273.
Yeah.
With 231 left over.
Yeah. And Dan, just a note, because we've done studies on the June 27, 20, but we know that that's part of a structure. It's built into, it's 1,260 days from when Panium and Raffia were presented for the first time in their sort of completeness in Alberta. And then, of course, from there, as you can see, it ends up being connected to these other lines. So you have this 1,260 and then the 273 that goes to March. Where's it here? So we got, where did you write the June? Yeah, so it goes to March 27th. And Jeff had connected that by 1,533 days. So it's an interesting fact that 1,260 plus 273 is 1,533. That's just a little detail that, everybody already pretty much knows, but I just think it's important that date, June 27th, 2020, we already have passed it, and we already have marked its significance.
Yeah. At the time, personally, I didn't know the significance of it per se, but yeah, it's so amazing how everything is so interlocked. And then now we see here also that from 710 to 627 it's another 13 days. So you see that so now with this structure here, we have 13, 8, and a 13 and an 8. And, as you sit and struggle with trying to figure out what is trying to be said here, try all sorts of different things. So the next thing I tried to do was use it instead of, we went 273, 273, 231, and 273, 273, 231. If we went 273 and 231, we come to 273. Wait a second. Let me find my train of thought again.
504.
There we go. 273, and then 231 fits here. I'm sorry, go ahead. What were you saying?
I thought you were trying to add 273 and 231, so I got 504.
Oh, that's correct. No, I was looking for the other, starting with 273 and doing 231. And that brings us right in the center from 8/8 to 327 is 231. So we find that we have 3 different patterns of dates: 273, 273, 231, 273, 231, 273, and the 231 here, 273, and the 273. So it's looking pretty confusing up here now with all of this stuff. It becomes very confusing.
Yeah, it becomes a little bit crowded there. Now, I'm not quite sure. So that 231 that you have from 8/8/20, right? Is that a 231 you wrote in there?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's just because you of your spacing of your time, you have this. It's so small compared to the rest. You probably could have stretched it all out.
Right.
But there is also some dates in there. Now, if you were to put 8/13/20, which is not a date we really have, but it would be 5 days after 8/8. And if you go, a Fibonacci sequence goes 5/8/13. If you went that way, you'd have a 5/8/13. But there is also some other dates that we have in there, like we have August 5th, 20, which is a significant date that not a lot of people know about, but that's not even in there. But that's 5 days after July 31st. So there's a crowding of dates in there that we still don't know all the significance of. But as you're going to see as we go on, that these dates it's the symbolic nature of these dates. 8/8 is a number that Jeff was presenting back in 2018, the number 8. And it comes from 2 Chronicles chapter 29, dealing with the 8 days that the priests clean the holy place, the temple, and then on the Levites clean for an 8 days after that. There's a 16-day period, but it's divided in 8 and 8. And initially, when we had that 252 days from November 11th to July 18th, Jeff's first intuition was to create that period of 252 days, to divide it into 226 day periods. And looking at the date in the center, which was March 14th, which was also March 1st on the Julian calendar. It's kind of complicated, but the point is he put 8 and 8 on each side of it. And so he had a significance there regarding the 8s. So 8/8 is important, and it shows up in a number of places. Like if you take the number 391 and you put it into base 32, you get 8-8, which is part of a whole structure that we've done. So there's a whole bunch of significance regarding a lot of these things, 8-8, and the 8-13s. So dealing with Palmoni and all these structures. So these are not just arbitrary dates. As symbols, they already have significance. And so when you put these 273s and you create these dates that we also can connect with the line, but also symbolically by the numbers in those dates, that would just be adding to the significance of what you've done.
Definitely.
It's becoming, it's becoming quite apparent what we're looking at here. We're looking at the working of the Holy Spirit on a group of men. And we all better start getting ready to travel.
Yeah, maybe. So from here, you know, as you can probably well imagine, starting at this point, you got to sit and look at this for a while. I was trying to figure out what this, to me, it was obvious that like God was trying to say something here. And so I added up the numbers, you know, 8-13 is 21 and 21, a doubling for midnight. 21 and 21 is 42, which is a symbol of persecution, which you could see that around the prediction for 7-18, you could well imagine that there would be some form of persecution, blowback back against Future for America and anyone who is trying to warn the people of Nashville. So I was looking at that and it just kind of popped into my head with looking at the three sets of numbers that I had, and this was 4. Why don't I add a fourth number to the sequence of 3? And the only way it would work is if I did the 273. So start with 273 from 11-9 to 8-8 is 273 days. From 8-8 to 273 or to 327-21 is 231 days. And then from 327 to 1225 is 273 days. So now, you know, I've got 273, 231, 273. Let's try putting 231 at the end past 1225. And it was interesting where this ends up. And it ends up right at 8/13/2022. Exactly 231 days past 1225. At that point, you know, you see the 8/13 doubled, and using the same kind of calculation, ending up at 8/13/22. I was quite amazed at this structure.
Now, Dan, just one observation. If we go to 8/13/2021, we're 391 days past July 18th, right? So,
Right.
So we can already take 391 and establish an 8/13 within our line that we have ending at December 25th, right? So you probably don't need to draw it in there, but anyway, from July 18th, 2020, 391 days brings us to 8/13/21. So we have that date already within that structure. Now, as people see, we now have a date past December 25th, 2021, and we don't necessarily know what it means. So, and I've always maintained that we can't predict time beyond the line of the priests, and I have the line of the priests end on December 25th, 2021. So now that we're looking at a date past there, then we have to struggle with what it means and whether we can understand what it means until now or if it's going to be something later. But the idea here is that the light that God is giving us now is supposed to establish our certainty of July 18th. That's my belief. So even though it's a date way in the future, and we don't know what it means, it can be an affirmation of this whole structure.
I'm with you, exactly. And I've got a couple of cases to show to you that how it does, it points right back to 718.
Yeah. Now, Stephen made a note here. He probably could have just told us. But he says, if you continue the Fibonacci sequence from August 8th, plus 34 days, it takes us to September 11th, 2020. So again, you can just see that there's these structural things that connect us with dates that are already symbols. The question, obviously I'm going to give you time to explain this, what you think it means, and the other connections. But we can see that obviously these dates are connected in a way that is extremely unlikely.
Oh, that's amazing. Thanks for that, Stephen. And because I found another connection to 9/11/19 that is really interesting, that we'll probably show at the very end. But the 391, so I got to this structure, and then I'm trying to figure out even more here and to confirm what this date is. And boy, this is so messy. We have, I'm going to erase some stuff up top here. So we see here, we know we have the 252 here to 1225. And this is the 252 and the 525, which is the 777. Now when you figure from 11/9 to 8/13, we come up with 1,008 days, or 144 weeks. So to me, this was our second witness to 8/13/2022. I mean, the symbolism, the 1,008, again, showing the 18th, 144 for the 144,000. And I thought that was quite amazing. Now, then I'm trying to connect it again to the 4/9, and I'm counting these out and trying to figure out how this is all fitting here. And here, it was 491 days from 4/9/21 to 8/13/2022. Now, and then I tried right here. It was when I found out about 391 as well, because I looked at this 491 thinking, yes, that's 39. That's that prophecy. No, it wasn't, Dan. This is 491. The 391 is the Revelation 9. So then I proceeded to go backward from here 391 days and came to 7/18/2021. And that's when I looked at it and went back, well, I think that should have went from 7/18/20 to 8/13/2021 to mark it that way. But that was an interesting. 7:56.
Yeah, well, the 491, of course, because it starts on, 4/9/21, so it can represent April 9th, the one representing 21.
Right. Well, and it's here that, let's see where I'm at, 4, 1, 2. Okay, here I'll show you another one here, and we'll start at, so I try to make it bigger. So 11/9, and we go to 8/13. $13, 22. See what I got there. Okay. 8, 13, 21. And 7, 18, 20. So if we look at this, of course, I just showed the 1,008 days, 144 weeks. 7/18 is 108 weeks and 756 days, or, and then we have from 4/9, I do this all color coordinated. 4/9, we have 1 year, 4 months, 4 days. Or 491. Okay, you see that? So we have the 144. Now, if we take this short span from 4/9 to 8/13, we have 18 weeks, or 126 days. So with all of these dates ending up on 8/13, they all have this relationship of either 144, 1008, or 18. So again, I think it's, it's just quite a witness to our dates being connected to August 13th, 2022, especially 2022. Can you follow me?
Yeah, no, obviously a lot of us would have to go over this on our own. And I suggest people write these things out and try to do some of the math and figure it out. I know some people find that hard to do, but it's actually really rewarding if you're going to sort through this rather than just reading a paper or watching a video.
Right.
But, we can see obviously the symbolism here is it's connecting this 11/9 date with 144 weeks. And of course, we know that 11/9/2019 is 30 years from the start of this movement. The only thing that I can really think about this is that this is a continuation of our line, but a part of it that we don't quite know what it means yet. That is, I always looked at 9/11 is, that's Raphia, then July 18th is Panium, and of course they start these periods. And then Panium is about the second coming, and the second coming ends on December 25th, 2021, because that's the end of the line of the priests. And I still maintain that we we can't go beyond the line of the priest, because time setting was given to the priests for a reason. It's not given to the Levites, and it's not going to be used after this. But the fact that we have this date that's further past just means that maybe there's something about the waymarks that we don't fully understand, and that maybe our last waymark isn't the second coming, which is symbolized by Paneum. Maybe it's some other waymark that goes beyond that, and we just haven't seen what it means yet.
Sure. Have you, here recently, I think it's on Jeff's video, his hand removed, number 11, I believe, in the notes there, where he talks about the Battle of Actium from 31 BC to 330. I'm not sure if I understand it all correctly, but he marks it from 718 to 1225, and then he also marked it from 1225 to a date out here that he didn't have a label on at all. Like maybe I forget if he had a label on it. But it's interesting to note that he marked it with 330 and 330, and coming from 31 and 31, going there. It's interesting to me that that was 330 and this is 33 weeks also. So from each end of it, from the beginning and even the center, if that is applicable. You know what I'm talking about there?
Yeah. Well, I partly understand it. So, I mean, yeah, we're using Constantine moving the capital in 330. Now, there's other dates, that have, connections with the 33 and the 31s. And, yeah, I'm just not sure how we're applying that. So
I don't know either.
Yeah, and I know that we can also take that period of time, the 360, it's 360 years from the Battle of Actium to 330. And so that's 31 BC. We also have the date 31 AD. And I'm not sure, if we started putting these dates on this line and started counting the number of years, whether we would come to something significant. I never thought of that. But I also know that we can go to the other war, because in studying Daniel chapter 11, we went from 48 BC. So we went earlier to 313, which is when they recognized basically Christianity. They were allowed to have freedom, religious freedom. And that's taking just the other battle of Egypt with Julius Caesar, right? So, I mean, that's another times of 360. But the thing about the 360 is obviously that represents a year in Bible prophecy. And when we have things on our line in their years, they're going to be 365 or 366 days. But, maybe there's something about just taking it as a symbol of a year, something like where we would connect August 13th, 2021 to August 13th, 2022, that symbolizes this period that is a time, a year, right? Mm-hmm. So just because it's 360 in prophetic time doesn't mean that we have to look at the time, if we're using the word the time for a time, that we could apply it to actually 1 year. And one of the things I find interesting is that we have connected the same dates in different years together, like the March 27th dates. They're all a year apart. But we also have the June 22nd dates that are 3 years apart. And we have a number of them that, we didn't know about before. We actually have 4 now, starting in 2011. All I'm trying to say is that as we're starting to look at the structure, what I want people to do is to spend some time with it and to see what we can do with it. And your suggestion about connecting that, to me, just suggests this idea of this year, that we can connect these different years together. And then we can look back in the past at dates that have occurred and then apply principles of connecting those same dates in years to dates in the future. So maybe on August 13th, we'll have a better idea about what August 13, 2022 might mean, or maybe on August 13, 2021, we might have a better idea. So we might find this other structure. Maybe it's the Palmoni chiasm or something like that, because we have the priestly chiasm, the Levitical, the midnight, the 777 chiasm. Maybe there's a Palmoni chiasm that somehow ties things together that we haven't seen. So you might just be finding the first piece of a puzzle.
Right. There's another one here. Where did that go?
Excuse me.
Yes.
Something's troubling me. I'm going to throw this out there. Who dies at age 40?
I don't know. Who does?
I don't know where the question came from.
Who dies at age 40?
Or who dies at 40 years after the start of this movement? I don't know what it is.
I have no basis for even understanding the question. I don't know.
Okay, I'm just going to put that on the plate and we can throw it out after dinner.
Yeah, well, Chuck always speaks in metaphor, so I usually never know what he's talking about. So I'm not sure what he's talking about, but I think he's implying that we have the 30 years for this movement, and he's just saying that somebody dies at 40, and so maybe that there's a 10-year period or something. I don't know if that's what he's suggesting or not.
Sure.
But I just think, as far as going past December 25th, 2021, we have to be quite sure what we're doing, bringing the lines further into the future, because we can't be predicting the events on the big line that Ellen White warns us about. And my idea was that the priest line comes to the end on December 25th, which of course is a significant date, both historically and also dealing with the 777. But we do know that, we're not really predicting the Sunday law per se. We're just predicting that Sabbath is the last day of the priest's line, and that the Sunday law could be any time after that. So I wouldn't even suggest that we would be predicting a Sunday law or anything like that with this 813. We would be just trying to understand July 18th better. And that's my view, is that this is helping us understand the significance of the event that's coming and not trying to look way into the future. But sometimes looking back on the past, if it gives us light in the future, that light in the future obviously is going to give light for our feet in the present, because the light is shining ahead on the path. And that's where we're going to need this light as we move forward. That's my view. So I don't know if we need to figure it all out right now, but I do think that we do need to recognize what we've already had established and what we're trying to look for. It's about the certainty, the trumpet giving a certain sound.
Have we come up with a place for December 25? I know I have.
I can't hear you, Theodore.
Yeah, Chuck, we're going to give you some time, one of the morning studies this week, for you to explain these things like locations and different things. But you're going to have to figure out how not to speak in metaphor, because it's really difficult if you talk cryptically. So you're going to have to talk like very plainly, and you're going to only have an hour to do that. So if you have a place figured out, it's not so much that we have to go through all the mental loops to try to figure out how you got there. We just want to know basically what your conclusions are and some of your basic arguments. If you can give us a paper that has listed the Bible verses and some of those things. But that's going to be another study. But yeah, we haven't figured out December 25th, 2021 yet.
All right, so here's another line that I saw here yesterday that I noticed. Of course, if you push this 231 out to 813, it creates, of course, coming from 11.9 is 231 to 627. So if you start at 627 to 813, is of course another 777 days. And the center of the 777 is 327:21. Oh, not the center of it. The center between 12:25 and 6:27 is 327. So it was almost like this. These two 777 lines are showing us that almost like the message to the Levites. You know, this is all the message to the Levites, and it's centering on 327:21. That's what's going on in my head.
So what's the center of this 777? Have you figured that out?
I don't know. I don't think I have that exactly. Do you? Do you have it for the 1225? Oh, it's 50. No, that's not right. Yes, we do. So 273 in the center from here. Well, the center from 813 to 11.9 is 327, right? It's 1,008 days, so it'd be 504. So that's the center from 813. But what's the center from here? 273, 273. Yeah, that's there. Well, what's the center from? How can that be? Am I looking at something wrong? I can't hear you. You're muted.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen here and try to help you out a little bit with some of these because we got time to do this. So I'm just going to blow this up a little bit. Now, what we have here is as soon as I share it.
That's right.
Let me see. Oh, I see what I did wrong. Okay, I got to do it this way. There we go.
Yeah,
I'm trying to share it off the wrong computer. So here is my calendar converter. Well, not mine, it's Troy's. So we can just put some dates in here. And so what date you want to put in? You want to see the center of this whole thing. So which date do you want?
Right, it is.
Oops.
Between 11.9 and 8.13.
So November 9th. And so what I do is I go here, I put the date in and I put save. And then I want to go, so I'm going from which date? November 9th, 2019?
To 8.13.
2022.
Yes.
So to August 13. So when I go that and I save them, oh, I should have cleared that. Never mind. Yeah, hang on. I'm going to go save. I'm going to go back here. Got too many other dates in there. And people can try these things. You can use this calendar converter. So if I just do that, it'll give me the number of days. That's 1,008 days from November 9th, 2019. Now you want to know what the center of that is. So you would just take 504 and add it to your first date. And then that will give me March 27th, 2020, when is the center of that.
Yeah.
So that was, you were correct. So I just save that there. It'll let me save 10 different dates on this so that I can compare all these different spans. And so that's significant in that context, that we end up having that the 504 and the 1008 there with that. So it just shows us that it's structurally, and of course that's logical based on how we've laid it out. Now you had a period of 77 days or 777 days.
Yeah.
Going back from August 13th, right?
Yeah.
So if I just, so if I go here in this box where it says adjust, I type in minus 777, I can go backwards, and that's going to bring me to June 27th, where you said that 777 days was, and so we can put that in the middle, or put that there. And then what we want to know is what's in the middle of that. So if you take 777 days and you divide it in half, it doesn't divide equally. So that would be 350 plus 35. So that would be
388.5.
Yeah, 388.5. Yeah, so. And so I'm just going to go forward from that date. So that gives us July 20th, 2021. And the interesting thing here is this is the 9th day of the 4th month. Does anybody know what the significance of the 9th day of the 4th month is on the biblical calendar?
No.
Walls are broken. Jerusalem is broken.
Jerusalem, the walls are taken down in Jerusalem in 586 BC. That's the 9th of Tammuz. And the other date, the Julian date there is July 7th, so that's 7/7. And so, there's, whether there's some more significance in that, here I'm just going to save it, so you can see it here. And then you can compare those numbers to other dates. Now, sometimes what I will do when I have a 0.5 is I will ignore that, in the sense that it depends where I'm counting from. If I'm counting, from noon to noon, that 0.5 is more significant. If I'm counting from one date to another, I may choose 388 and 389. I may choose a lopsided date with it. So I have to decide where in that day I want to count. When you see it here, it's actually going to be noon on July 20th, because we're counting from midnight commencing June 27th and midnight commencing August 13th, 2022. And so it's going to end up being at the noon hour. Here, you can see it's noon, but I might have chosen maybe noon on the other day, and that would actually bring me to the 21st. So there's different ways that you can do it and count those days when you have a 0.5, and you have to decide whether you're going to count ordinally or cardinally, so that can affect what the center date is as well. So it's just a note if anybody's trying to do this. And I think we should start using these tools a bit more. I know some people are, but to count these spans of time. And I would go through this study that Dan has presented and try to lay these things out in your own mind, drawing them out on paper, and then try to understand the spans and how they're held together. Because there are some logical things that are going to happen. Yes?
It would be helpful if I could get an update with this calendar. I think I'm using an old calendar. Also, I just sent you an email. You might want to take a look at it.
Okay.
I got one more thing. That'll come back to me.
Okay. Okay. So anyway, I'm just going to stop the share there so that Dan can go back to presenting.
Yeah, that's very interesting about the 720. That's good.
Yeah.
Now from here, I guess I'm going to show you one other way that we can accentuate that line. Take that one off.
This came back while he's racing.
Sure.
July 7. I think we should expect that the walls of Jerusalem, the walls of the United States, will fall down on July 7.
Well,
I don't know if that's a declaration of war or something out of Congress.
Well, we have it July 20th, and it's July 7th, Julian. So whether that is significant or not, we don't
So if
know.
that's Julian, that would bring it to the 20th. Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But yeah, it is that symbol for the falling of the walls of Jerusalem.
I believe that Trump is going to be forced to make a decision on July 20 and start World War III. That will be the falling of the walls.
Could be the walls of separation of church and state. There's lots of symbols that walls can have.
Yeah, you can put my name on that one, Theodore.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Chuck. Yeah, so you're laying out the 8 13s in a later period of time. So you're dealing with them in 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then.
Okay. Well, I guess I should stop there for that one because, yeah, I guess you just go back to here. We have the 5/8. Okay, we have the 5/8. Sorry, I don't have all this written out.
That's okay. You're not under any real severe time constraints here. You're just cleaning up the lines a little bit more so we can kind of look at it better and get a better idea of what it's about.
Is that 231 days from July 20 to 8/13?
No, the July 20. No. 13. No,
How many
that
days? That'd be 11 plus 13. 11 plus 10 is 21. It'd be 23 days. So you drop the 0 on the 230. We're folding time here.
Yeah, well, yeah. I don't know if that's that significant, Chuck, but anyway, the 231 goes from December 25th, 21 to August 13th, 2022.
Time's being cut short.
Well, we'll see. But
You
anyway,
got a 23 instead of a 231, depending on whether you're going to measure from noon or sunset.
yeah. Okay.
Now here I tried to line these up just a little bit different. Can you see all the way to the edge?
I can, yep.
Okay. So of course we have our 8 days and our 13 days here. And on the 327, we have 13 days and 29 days. And from 4/9, we have 273 days. And with this structure, if we use the 273 again here, we have 8 days and 13 days from 1/7. We have another 8/13 surrounding the 12/25. And then you come back 1/26 to 8/13. And now this is 97 days, which I'm not sure what the significance of that is. And then we have 8/8, 20, which is 231.
Does the year change in the middle of this?
Yeah, this is 21. And this is 20.
Yeah, and then you need the 8 days after July 31st.
Yeah. So using the 273 in this fashion, it shows the 8/13 at each end as well. And the year, 26 days. And remember that the 391 is also 126, the 1 year, 26 days. And there's more that 8/13. So this is also the 126 from 8/13 to 4/9. And from 7/31 to 4/9 is 252. And then you can even back up to 327, of course.
So yeah, 327, 2020, which is the center of the Levitical chiasm.
Which is another 126. So you got 126, 252, 126, and 126 to the 17th. And then with the 273s extended to the 1/7, which shows us the 8/13 on both sides. You see that? Now, it was interesting here that I made
What is the 8/13? So on the 97 there, the 8/13 is 2021, right?
Yep.
And then the other one, when we go to the 126, that's bringing us to where?
12/17.
Okay, and then 2025.
Yeah. And then 1/7.
12/25, and then that's which date? The very far one?
1/7/22.
Okay, so
January 7th.
yeah, so January 7th, 22. Okay.
That's when we connect it this way.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that, just always trying everything with the numbers that I can. When you add up these numbers, you come up with 756. When you add, the ones from where did I come from? Another 252. There's another 252 from 12/17, of course, to 5/8 is 252. I added 252, 97, and 273 because these are already somewhat counted in the 252. You come up with 622 and 756, which that is, like the 756, which is 1,000. Where did it go? Is 108 weeks is 756. It's just another correlation with the other numbers, but I don't know what any of that means or if it does anything at all, but it was just an observation of the 622. I don't have anything solid as far as why we should maybe use those numbers, but I just put it there. And I thought that this was neat when I saw this as well, that the 391 can represent the 126 as well in that way.
Yeah, as long as you have a leap year in there, I think is when it works. Because otherwise it's 365 plus 25. So
Right.
now just a question here, Dan. So you got, what's that?
Without the leap year.
Yeah. So a question that I have now, so you've done all this, we have these numbers and we have this structure, and when we have to decide the significance of it all, what things matter and what things don't. And so it starts to get a bit cluttered, but I think there is significance in the 813, right? Because that's really what this is about.
Yeah.
And you can start to connect some of these things, and then some of them become a little bit extraneous. I mean, they're important. I'm not saying they're not, but they're sort of beyond the point. The question is, how do we interpret these symbols dealing with 813? Do you have ideas about what this means with our other waymarks, or are you just looking at the math?
As far as 813 goes, what kept going over in my head is that it is just substantiating this date, 7/18, 12/25, and then with that, giving us this date out here. For some reason, it's all connected to it, and even here, there's one more witness to what that is that number is 1 year, 4 months, and 4 days.
Right.
So you have another 144, and it's pointing here, and it's all
Right.
Palmoni.
Yeah, and that's the way that I would look at it. So, I've thought about it a lot. I've looked at this structure, and one thing that we think about dates, we know we have some dates that don't actually mark events, but they're structural. That is, they have symbolic representations and connect to other dates and affirm those other dates. So I would think on the very simplest level, we'd have to say that 8/13/22 is not telling us that we have some event to mark in the future that we have to look at, but we can say that that date just ties numerically to the other dates that we have and affirms those dates. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes and no. I agree totally with that, because standing where we are standing, we don't know. We don't know what that means.
Right.
None of us do. And, we just have to humbly look at this kind of stuff and say, we see the structure, but we don't see what's happening there yet. But as the light shines brighter and brighter, somehow I think the closer we get, we may see a significance coming for that.
Yeah.
And, who knows, just like, you guys presented 273 and Jeff presented Palmoni, and then someone else coming along notices this 813. If someone else comes along and sees what's happening here, their mind works a little different, and the Holy Spirit may help them to, figure out a little bit or fine tune whatever this may or may not be, right?
Yeah. No, and I think, because, Chuck, not trying to criticize Chuck here, but, he has sent me a chiasm going, way past, for the close of probation. In my view, is still the same. I don't believe in time setting. And, we have this time that we're stuck in, and it was initiated by Parminder and Tess. They initiated this whole mess, so to speak, but we're in it. And it's part of this movement, this line of the priests. And that's why I think that we're not going to have anything beyond the line of the priests, because this was something given for us as a witness against the new movement, the offshoot, the cult, basically these people that are messed up. They have a bunch of subjective sort of arguments, but we have something quite objective that stands as a witness against them. And to me, it's just the structure itself. It doesn't even matter to me whether any of these events that we're looking at in the future, including Nashville, ever occur. It still stands as a witness against them. And it stands as a testimony of this movement, that this movement is structurally sound. Now, I would say that if there would be internal things that these lines have to show, but they're not necessarily having to show external events. Now, some people have taken that statement, Tableau's taken that statement, and told people that I'm actually doubtful about July 18th. And that, of course, is ridiculous. I have never seen anything that would suggest to me that July 18th isn't going to be anything other than an attack on Nashville by Islam. The thing that I don't know is the subjective elements, and I've never, ever professed to know things that I can't know. I can only know what's shown to us, and what's shown to us are these lines, and these lines are structured by God. He's responsible for what happens on those lines, not us. So we can interpret and say what we think the lines mean, and we've seen events fulfilling in these lines. So I would suggest that July 18th is going to be this attack as we expect, because some of these other dates don't make sense unless that happens. Because I have other dates too, August 5th, 2020, which lines up with Trump and me, both line up together on August 5th. So it would suggest that, Trump and I meet on August 5th, 2020. That's a line that's a part of a personal line, but it would make no sense if July 18th doesn't happen. If July 18th doesn't happen, Trump lining up with me wouldn't really make any sense. So this is part of what I want to struggle through, at least why, I think that you should present this and why I wanted you to present it. Because one is we need light, and we have to be open to anything that God's going to show us, even if this might be something in the future that we don't see yet. I think this light is important. As we pass through these lines, we will understand more and more about what is happening. The other thing about these lines that you haven't done is you've stuck within this 9/11, but we actually have a bigger chiasm that goes all the way back to December 21st, 2012. And looking at that whole structure, there's a lot more that is going on than what you're just presenting here. And I know that's a lot of work for people to do. But that's one thing that I wanted you to do in reading that paper. Have you read the 777 chiasm paper all the way through?
Yes.
Okay. So did you try connecting any of this back into the whole structure?
I haven't yet.
Okay.
My life is pretty busy.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm trying to catch up.
Yeah.
So trying.
Yeah. And I know Stephen, I sent him your paper before. He hasn't really commented on it. Yeah. Stephen, do you have any thoughts about this? Had you looked at it before the presentation here?
Daniel actually sent me his paper before he sent it to you.
Okay.
And then I gave him your email.
Yeah.
So I have read much of it before. Yeah. So I thought it was interesting. I thought you'd be more interested in it because it connected with the Mayan calendar. Some things I just wanted to sort of, I wasn't majorly impacted by it, but it was kind of interesting. But I just wanted to sort of see what you thought of it as well. That's
Okay.
why I asked him to send it to you first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but what stood out was the 813 aspect.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and I think the 813, whether we, because I think there's just this structural chiasm of 813s that we need to look at. We need to look at these August 13ths, which I haven't really had time to do, and try to see if there's actually another structural chiasm, because we have the 622 chiasm, which some people know actually locks into, because the center date between June 22nd, 2011 and June 22nd, 2014, which Jeff had noted, the center date is the start of the Mayan calendar in the 13th back tune. So we have these wheels within wheels that become interlocked. And I just think that we could probably expand this 813 back into the past somehow within that structure that we already have, and find that it creates a chiasm that we haven't noticed. And I haven't really had the time to do that. So Dan, do you have much more left to present?
A little bit. I just, I'll try to wrap it up here in just a minute.
Okay.
Okay. Just going back to the 491, if you recall that,
Mm-hmm.
before I even understood or saw the 1 year, 4 month, 4 days, that reminded me, I first of the 391, but then of course the closest prophecy to that was the 490 years. So when you have the 490, which I should have been writing on, from 457 to 408, and then 27, 34, 31, 34. You have this, the 7 weeks or 49 years and the 1 year, right? Or 1 week. And all this did was, when I was thinking of this, looking at it this way, it reminded me of what Jeff and on different videos that I've been seeing, that you guys were marking November 9th as the 30th year for Future for America. So with that parallel, that you're paralleling Christ's line with the ministry, then I thought, well, what if we took 3.5 years from 11/9/19 and see where that ended up? And so I did that. And so when I added 3.5 years from 11/9/19, that comes to 5/8/23. And so from 5/8/23, the center of 11/9 to 5/8/23, if I mark it over here with a different color, the center, let's see, is it 20 or 21? 20, 21. It's 8/8/21. So I'm going too far. Anyway, the center of this is 8/8/21. So when you take the 3.5 years to 5/8, we're marking 2 waymarks again that were already revealed to us out of this line, which is the 8/8 and the 5/8/21 here, that were on our original line that we went 273, 273, 231 using that measurement. So when you do 3.5 years, you get the 5/8 and the 8/8 as our center. I thought that was pretty telling, just as telling as the coming to the 8/13 from adding the 231 days. Thought that was quite interesting. Not that we know, of course, again, what that date means, but it just shows a structure that has these dates that are coming out in the future. Any thoughts on that part of it?
If we take November 9 and add 10 weeks, what do we come up with?
2.5 months?
What's the date?
Do you already have the date?
No, I'm working on it right now. That was 2019, right?
Yeah.
And I gotta add 10 weeks to that. Oh man,
January 8th, 2020.
January 8, 2020?
January 18th, 2020, pardon me.
January 18, 2020.
Yeah, and the significance of that, so that's a date that's passed, but the significance of that is it's the 22nd day of the 10th month on the biblical calendar.
Who or what died at that point?
I don't know.
He's still talking to me about somebody dying at that point.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, there's one more interesting note that since you mentioned about your personal line
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
I know I gave you my birthday. Did you see anything interesting about a number of days from my birthday? You're muted.
Yeah, I had a bunch of different things. I can't remember them offhand.
Okay, I'll just show one that I thought was interesting because it's tied to one other thing. My best friend that brought me into and introduced me to Jeff a long time ago.
Yeah.
But if from my birthday to December 25th, see, at the end of the 5/25 on December 25th, I'll be I'll be 52 years, 5 months, and 25 days old.
Right, and you were born June 30th, 1969.
Right.
Right, so just so people can figure that out.
Strange, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay,
And
that's interesting.
Did you put my dates I gave you on the calendar or in your calculation?
Yeah, I did, Chuck, I couldn't find anything significant about your dates.
Well, that's good.
And then Theodore, my friend, that we've been in this together in this movement, over the years. On 5/8, he'll be 52 years and 5 months exactly
Okay.
on that day, which I don't know, it's just an interesting
Yeah.
number.
And these, I mean, I believe people are tied into these lines in different ways, people in this movement. So those are interesting things that you bring up. Okay, so let's try to, even though it's like 12:30, do you have anything else that you want to try to sum this all up?
I think this kind of stops right here. There are, as you know, there's more that I could go through, but maybe with a little more preparation and a little more structure to it, that at a later date we can talk more about that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, there is one. There is one. Just a little thing that just came back to me that I shared with you, but I'd like to share it with everybody again. And that is from 3/27 to 5/8. So just that number of days, it's what, 42, I think it's 42 days, right? Yeah,
I think so, yeah.
42 days. It's also 1 month and 11 days. And it's also 1,008 hours.
Okay.
So again, that time period, along with these two waymarks, come up with all these symbolic numbers that we see in other portions of all of this. With the 1,008 days, the January 11th, 2020, and 42 days, in this section, and in, that represent persecution.
And May 8th becomes a symbol of, like, it's part of the Fibonacci sequence. 5 and 15.
Right, and it shows up here and at the end of the 3.5 years of the ministry line.
Yeah. But yeah, we're not necessarily sure what that all means, the 8th, but yeah. But as a symbol, it fits in, and it does show us part of that is part of the structure.
Right. Yeah, and there's so much more to talk about too, about I think 10/11 and 1/11 and how all that meshes together. But that's a lot to hash out.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I think that's I'm done for today.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions besides Chuck?
The 491 days, I wouldn't connect that personally to the 70 weeks unless it was 490. I wouldn't take 449 and then have the last week, the 1 week, being the one. It seems to be like
Right.
you kind of, maybe I would have that last week being 7, and you have the 49 rather than making it 1. That's just my.
Yeah, that was my view too. I actually don't tie it to the 490, even though it's like it's
right. And just so I make it straight and clear that I'm not connecting those numbers, but when it was just my thought process that it reminded me of that. And then I looked at the 1 week and it just reminded me of that. It's not, the numbers are not connected.
okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
That's what made me take the 3.5 years from 11/9 and go forward, was just thinking that, oh, yeah, the FFA 30 years there. Well, Jesus, spent 30 years and then the 3.5 years of his ministry.
Mm-hmm.
Just like correlation in my head.
Well, thanks for that. That's, it's definitely better seeing you present it than me presenting it from your paper to my wife, not understanding everything completely. But I still think there's more to it than what we see here. And now some of the structure course is just logical because you're taking this thing and shifting it over, but it's the connections that we have, 144 weeks, because we already had the 111 weeks from November 9th to there. And that means we end up with 33 more weeks to that August 13th, 2022. So there's just interesting things regarding all of that. If you take And that means if you take 231 and you divide it, it's 33 weeks, which is logical because it's just another, because 210 would be 30 weeks. And then you're adding 3 more weeks to get the 231. But the thing is, it still fits into that structure, that 33 weeks. The 33 becomes part of that symbol that you were talking about before, the 330 AD. And I think some of the symbolism here, I think that this could partly relate to the relationship between the priests and the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Because there's some structural numbers here, things that deal like moving the capital to Constantinople from Rome could have some symbolic significance in this line. That's not necessarily one of our waymarks. So there could be something about 813:22 that just has to do with the priests in the movement, what happens, and we would probably figure that out as we get closer to it. So I think we're going to finish there. I know Chuck asked if everyone sees time folding. No, I don't. I don't know what that means, because I don't think time can fold. But I think with Chuck, there's probably some significance there that's pretty metaphorical.
1,008 years to 1,008 minutes.
Yeah, but that's not folding. That's just a wheel within wheels. So I wouldn't call it a folding.
Yeah.
We have it
all these wheels up on Dan's board. We're going to get those in print, right?
Yeah, because we already have like 144,000 days that with that structure of the 391 years, where we can say that those days can be represented as minutes within that calculation. So we have a period of 144 minutes, which is 100 days. 144,000 minutes is 100 days. And so we had all this structure dealing with the idea that we can take hours, days, months, and years. We can even use minutes and seconds. They all have this significance. But I just wouldn't call that time folding. I would just say it's wheels within wheels.
I was building a church for or not a church, a 10-story building in Tacoma Park, Maryland, for the church. And I happened to be a welder on that thing, that project back in 1968. And they refused to let me preach the three angels' messages. So I was welding the next morning on that building. I went to lunch and turned around to come back, and I watched that 10-story building fold down into the basement, and not one beam hit this brand new white truck down in the bottom. I'll leave that at that. Also, if we got a few more minutes, I would like to address July 18 by using Ezekiel 19, 12 through 14.
Okay, how long is that going to take?
I can do it about 5-10 minutes.
Okay, so Dan, thanks. I'm going to switch over to Chuck here. That's okay. You fine with that? So switch over to him on you just have to do this way. And so we really thank you, Dan, for that presentation. And so Chuck's got like 5-10 minutes where you can present some things, and then we can finish up with prayer. So July 18th, so you're going to Ezekiel chapter 19, you said?
19, 12 through 14.
Okay. So let's turn there.
Somebody want to read that, and I'll stop you as we go through the verses?
I can do that.
Okay.
And I'll just share it on the screen here as well so people can see that.
Oh, that's great. As y'all can see, my board's a bit black.
Yeah.
Got my name on it.
So, but she was plucked up in fury. She was cast down to the ground, and the east wind dried up her fruit. Her strong rods were broken and withered. The fire consumed them. So that's pretty obvious symbolism.
Okay, I'm going to go back to Ezekiel 19:11 even. And she had strong rods for the scepters of them that bear rule. Okay, I don't know if y'all know anything about a nuclear weapon. They have rods of uranium that are driven into other rods. And when they meet a critical mass through this driving of these two elements together, you have a nuclear explosion.
Mhm.
And her status was exalted among the thick branches. And the thick branches are the columns on the Parthenon. I gave a coordinate a long time ago of 36 degrees, 9 minutes, no seconds. That's the front door. That's a point on the steps of the Parthenon. In order for a missile to go through the front door, it would have to pass through over that coordinate. And she appeared in her height and with the multitude of her branches. So we've got a missile going through the front door of the Parthenon, but the Lord is disturbed with the mocking of his fire. But she was plucked up in fury. She was cast down to the ground. This missile will be cast down to the ground. And the east wind, that's Islam, dried up her fruit. Her fruit was this U-235 in these rods. Her strong rods were broken and withered, and fire consumed them. Whose fire consumed them? God's fire consumed them. Ezekiel 19:13. And now she is planted in the wilderness. Now there's a wilderness made out of Nashville, and he even tells us how big it is. It's I want to say 500. It's not written here. He tells us in another verse of how big it is. And now she is planted in the wilderness in a dry and thirsty ground. The water is going to be poisoned by the radiation that's spread on the ground. It's not going to blow up. You're going to find, I've actually stated that this is going to be a Tomahawk, a U.S. missile with a Russian warhead that does not explode, because he's going to drive it into the ground and he's going to break the rods. He's going to break the nuclear trigger and fire. Oops, where are we at? 19. And fire has gone out of the rod of her branches, which hath devoured her fruit, so that she hath no strong rod to be a scepter. In other words, he's going to take the scepter away from Islam. Islam's wanting to create, has always wanted to create its own nation. Well, they've come here to do that, and they're already here. Most of them live in Dearborn, Michigan. They brought their families, so you can take the 80,000 that were brought in by Obama, and you can multiply that by their wives. But he's going to take away their scepter that would have given them a nation, a nuclear explosion, so that she hath no strong rod to be a scepter to rule. This is not a disappointment for us. This is a lamentation, and shall be for a lamentation. He's doubled that lamentation. So that's for today.
Mm-hmm.
About 12 days from now, in fact.
Okay, Chuck. Well, that's really good, actually. So I thank you for that. Now, so we're going to have to figure out a time that you're going to be presenting one of these mornings.
Okay. I'll try to get my homework up. The Lord has told me not to worry about the notes, and maybe that's my mind.
Well, I definitely want notes, and I want the Bible verses written out, and then I want, like here, you spoke pretty plainly, so it wasn't too metaphorical. I could follow what you were saying. Now, I'm not sure if I always agree with exactly how you're interpreting these verses, but I can see that this could definitely be applied to the attack by Islam. One is it's the east wind, which is a symbol of Islam, and these rods, which you applied to the nuclear weapon, could.
And one of those rods is the missile itself. He drives that one to the ground.
Yeah. But there's also the symbol of this tree, so the thick branches being the tree. And I'm not sure if I would put the branches as being the pillars of the Parthenon, but that's how you're applying it. So
Let me just say, you remember the fire that sits down on the building, and the white and the arrows that come from it.
Yeah.
That building is made of concrete and steel. The concrete's going to be turned to glass by God's fire, vitreous glass. The steel is going to be turned into arrows, white hot steel that takes out other buildings and other people.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure about that one, but because I'm still not sure about your idea of the two different things. So you have God's fire coming down, and you have the missile as well. And I don't see that in any of this, but I know that's part of the view that you want to present. So that's going to be fine. So we're going to look at those things and try to see if they make sense. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for participating, and I think tomorrow I'm going to be presenting something from 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. I do have an appointment at 9 o'clock in the morning, so I'm not going to go overtime at all because it takes me about a half an hour to get there. So, but anyway, we're going to do a presentation tomorrow morning. I haven't decided the topic yet, but it's going to relate to some of the stuff, obviously, that we've been studying. And so I thank Dan again. I thank Chuck for participation, and Stephen and Angela for her comments as well. And, we're approaching a time that's obviously going to be a lamentation. This is not going to be a time of rejoicing. This is not something where we exalt over anybody for making this prediction. Because one is, it's God's prediction, and God's responsible for what happens. We had a responsibility to warn people, and that, I think, has been done sufficiently, that people are aware of it, and people are studying it, and I hope that some people pay attention and leave Nashville at that time. But anyway, I want to close with prayer, and I want people to spend time to study these things out on their own, and to continue to learn, because there's so much to learn. And so I want each of you to know that you're very valuable to God, and that we have a difficult time ahead of us, but we need to be there for each other in prayer. So let's close with prayer. Dear Father in heaven, we're thankful for the light that shines upon our path. And we ask, Lord, for faith to walk in it. We know that we have doubts in our minds at times about things. We don't always know if we can trust even ourselves, but we know that we can trust you. And so we give our hearts to you, and we put our trust in you. We ask, Lord, that you can help us not to be uncertain. We know that this study here was to give the trumpet a certain sound. And we know, Lord, that your hand has been in this message from the very beginning. And you've given us all these waymarks. You've unfolded light to us. And help us to recognize the solid foundation that has been laid. Help us not to add things to that foundation that are sticks and stubble and dirt, but help us to add truth and light that can make these things shine brighter. Thank you for the time we've had here this morning, and we ask for a blessing upon each person. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
I would like to say that if everyone would send me an email, I'll be glad to get them some advanced notes on what I might have to say.
Yeah, I'll send the notes out, Chuck. So if you send the notes to me, I'll send them to everyone. Okay?
Okay.